Welcome to the Fear and Greed Daily Interview. I'm Sean Aylmer. Last week, global tech giant Apple said it was entering the payment installments business through Apple Pay, partnering with Goldman Sachs. At the same time, PayPal revealed its offering in Australia as well, and next month Commonwealth Bank, which owns a stake in buy now, pay later group Klarna, is due to launch StepPay, another instalment product. And with local market leaders Afterpay and Zipco also continuing their expansion overseas, it's safe to say the sector is booming. It's also becoming increasingly crowded. But one of the earliest players in Australia, even before Afterpay came along, was OpenPay, which was founded in 2013. OpenPay targets a more mature demographic than many of its competitors, and that also means their purchases are typically of higher value. It's an ASX-listed company, and in the last couple of years has expanded to the United Kingdom and now the United States. Michael Idle is the Global CEO and Managing Director of OpenPay, having joined the company from the Commonwealth Bank, where he was Executive General Manager. Michael, welcome to Fear and Greed.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning.
You're in a very busy market, Michael.
I think you're spot on with your introduction. It's a very strongly booming but also crowded market. I think we have, as you also outlined very beautifully, found our niche, our position where we can excel and lead the market, which is really where we can offer our longer, larger and customized installment plans into industries and verticals like healthcare, home improvement, automotive, education and sporting memberships and bigger ticket retail, where our longer, larger plans can really make a true difference. And we can own these sectors and provide our older audience, our finance-savvy audience, as you say, really a smart budgeting tool to manage their budgets in the right way.
So all these different players, OpenPay has done a great job in finding a niche, and that's probably understating it somewhat, but finding your audience value. Is it that all the other players, be it from sort of buy now, pay later or installment payment players, will have to find their own niche, or is the market big enough for everyone to compete?
Look, I think there's two distinct value propositions within what is called buy now, pay later. The one is, which is probably the very popular one for younger people in fast-moving retail fashion accessories, which is pay in 4. That's typically what we know from Afterpay, from Laybuy and Sezzle, an Aussie-listed company in the US, which is typically 2-month plans with 4 fortnightly installments, which is perfectly suitable for these lower value purchases like T-shirts and tennis shoes and the like. Mm-hmm. That's one. The other one where we focus on is more really a digital consumer lending product. Similarly or equally smooth and seamless for the customer, can happen at the point of sales in milliseconds to get an approval for a larger value plan, but really more for areas of very well-considered investments into people's lifestyles, like dental treatments, veterinary surgery for their family's furry friends, car services, car repairs, kind of more higher value fashion, maybe something for the evening, but also then sport memberships and the like. So this is typically much higher value investments in people's lifestyles. And I think that's the second dimension where we very, very strongly focus on. So I think going forward, we see more differentiation between the two. Mm-hmm. The ones growing very, very strongly, but to much lower margins, if you like. Yep. And the area where we focus on where we can get a fee from the customer and the merchant, which leads to very nice commercial terms.
Okay. So that's a very good distinction. The industry so far has broadly avoided regulatory scrutiny. Yeah. Does the fact that Apple is getting involved, Commonwealth Bank's getting involved, is that more likely to put regulators perhaps on watch about what's happening in the industry? Is that something you're concerned about?
First of all, 2 questions. First of all, I'm not concerned, and I will explain in a minute why. But first of all, I think your first statement is right. With these larger players now entering the space, and again, focusing very, very strongly on the pay in 4, the short-term plans for more spontaneous transactional purchases will cause more concerns with the regulators about financial hardship and affordability. So I think that's definitely contributing to the scrutiny of regulators across markets in Australia, in the UK, and in the US as well. On the other end, we are already credit licensed in Australia. We don't use it because we are not regulated under the National Credit Code, but we have a credit license, and we adhere to very high principles and standards of responsible lending already. In the UK, with the acquisition of Payment Assist, which we have announced very recently, part of the deal is also obtaining the FCA credit authorization as part of the change of control application, which is with the FCA right now. So we will have credit license product in the UK very soon as well. And in the US, where we have launched very recently and will provide our first plans into the market, we are also working with the regulator to get the license. So from our perspective, this is not something to be worried about. For us, being regulated and offer a licensed credit product is part of the strategy. And we want to be the responsible provider, the kind of the adult in the room when it comes to responsible lending in buy now, pay later.
Okay, so I mean, certainly if you have those credit certifications, you are probably in front of a lot of your competitors, really.
I think that's exactly right. And it takes quite a bit to embed the kind of affordability checks, etc., in your technology. We are heavy users of credit scores. This is what we get told from our credit bureau partners all the time. And we do for all higher value plans a credit check in kind of near real time. But we already are very, very conscious about topics like affordability and financial hardship and do, I think, a good job in avoiding these issues for our customers.
Stay with me, Michael. We'll be back in a minute. My guest this morning is Michael Idle, CEO of OpenPay. So OpenPay has an older demographic. A couple of things there. Your average value is higher. That's a question.
Yeah.
Your credit score, I'm interested in loan losses, or it's not loan losses, but it's sort of bad debts, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is just how important was educating people my age how to use buy now as opposed to a 30-year-old?
Yeah, that's good questions. I start with the first. You're right. We service an older audience, or we call them more finance savvy and mature. The median age of our customers quite consistently across Australia and the UK is around 39 years. If you compare with providers who service a very young audience, their average or median age is maybe 25, after being probably more 30, early 30s. So from that perspective, as I said in the very beginning, we are more a budgeting tool than a source of cheap credit for people who want to be in control of their cash flows. Our ideal kind of loss rate from credit and fraud risk combined in percent of total transaction value, kind of the turnover, is around 2.5%. This is kind of an optimum for us between having a good, healthy credit book on the one hand side, but also good throughput at the merchant to have a good conversion rate to deliver on our promise to be kind of a bit also a marketing tool and a customer acquisition tool for them.
Yeah.
And if you look at the portfolio of our business, we have only a minor part of our portfolio overall in the 2-month plan, where most of our competitors play. It's less than 10%. And this is typically in retail and mass retail. And there the loss rates are higher than in, for instance, car dealerships or dental clinics or sport clubs, where the origination of a plan typically comes with a relationship. So you know your dentist, probably have been knowing your dentist for 10 years, and they know who they offer the OpenPay plans for when the treatment is more expensive than you would have expected. So with this kind of social interaction also comes a very good profile from a credit and obviously also fraud risk perspective, which helps us greatly to have a healthy credit book.
So what's the average time of payment for OpenPay?
Yeah, we look at the different kind of verticals or industries. In retail, what I call bigger ticket retail, like Bunnings or Officeworks, some of our major retail clients in Australia, or the Hut Group in the UK, we are the only provider of 3-month plans. That's kind of across the two countries between 3 and 4 to 5 months, typically in retail. Mm-hmm. In automotive and healthcare, think of a car service or dental treatment is kind of around $600 to $1,200, and then the plan duration would be around maybe 5 to 9 months. And home improvement, which is another important vertical for us, think of Bunnings Kitchen for kitchens, other furniture, etc. The average plan value is around $3,000, and the typical plan duration 12 to 15 months. So we cover the broad range really from 2 or 3 months up to 24 months, and from a value perspective up to $20,000 in these respective areas of lifestyle.
Now, I want to move on to being listed on the share market. So OpenPay, like all the buy now, pay later groups, the volatility in the share price is quite incredible.
Yeah.
And you've sort of seen the best of it and the worst of it in many ways. What is it behind the fluctuations in, I suppose I can only ask you about OpenPay, but also the whole sector seems to be very volatile.
I think that's a good observation. And when I look into the reports of brokers and bank analysts, it's typically described as a sector which is really emerging and a lot to be learned in the market, what it is about and what I mentioned at the very beginning, distinguishing between pay in full and more digital consumer lending is something what the market first need to get their head around, what that really means also in terms of growth and value going forward. You're right. We have seen us a bit more than a year ago at a share price of 32 cents when COVID hit the world, and it went up a few months later to close to $5.
Yeah.
And we are now at around $1.50, $1.60. So we have seen, and the whole sector have seen significant volatility. If I look at the recent share price development of ourselves and the broader market, I think what will help our profile greatly is as we have now hired the team in the US and start to acquire partners and merchants in the US to launch now over the next couple of months. And I think this will change the profile of our business and the profile of our growth very, very dramatically, because the US market is so big. If I take retail, it's times 30 what the Aussie market is. And in the US, we can from the outset focus on our key verticals, not kind of playing broad what we do here in Australia because the market is so small, but we will focus in the US from the outset on healthcare, with large dental service organizations, one contract, one technical integration, thousands of dentists, and each of them have between 800 and 1,500 patients. So if you just look at the volume which we can create and the number of customers which you can win with one dental service organization, which we are now acquiring, and not only one of them, but several of those, this will be an order of magnitude of size to compare to Australia, which will, I think, just put us in a completely different perspective, also vis-a-vis our competitors from a scale perspective. Yep. And I think this will help our profile, our share price quite significantly.
Why do you think Australia then, because the US market is so underdeveloped relative to Australia in the buy now, pay later space?
Yeah.
They have a big listed group called the Firm, but really it's the Australian players doing as much, or the subsidiaries of the Australian players really making their mark over there. Why is that?
From my perspective, I'm not Australian, but having been here now for many, many years, including with one of the leading banks when it comes to technology, I think it's a fantastic achievement for Australia to kind of be a breeding ground for such great innovation, not only, but also and predominantly now recently in the payment space. And I think it's fantastic that we are now able to export our wonderful product, which combines really payments with digital lending very, very smoothly now to the world, including the biggest kind of payments market in the US. And I think it's, for me, the reason why I think Australia is leading from that perspective is really the openness of people, kind of the culture here, to play really in the most positive sense with new technologies which provide great customer experiences and obviously add value. And I think this is what buy now, pay later really is about. And I think Australia can be proud to lead the market to that respect.
So will buy now, pay later products, installment products, are they the new credit cards, do you think?
Yeah, I have said this some time ago, and I still believe in it very, very strongly, particularly in the area where we focus on, which is these higher value and longer term plans. People, particularly young people, but now also creeping up the curve from a demographic perspective, they don't like credit cards anymore at all. They come with quite cumbersome kind of interest rates and kind of can get you in a debt trap further down the track if you don't service your card in time. And I think this is what buy now, pay later and buy now, pay smarter, our product can really solve. People pay fees, but we are fully transparent upfront and they're reasonable in line with the value which we create to them, to the merchant and to the customer. So I believe mid to long term, buy now, pay later and buy now, pay smarter, as we interpret it, will have a great potential to eat deeply into credit card usage. And that's what we are kind of working towards every day to create a great customer outcome for their purchases.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you ever want an example of fintech benefiting Australian customers, just look at the buy now, pay later space, because many of us just don't use credit cards anymore, and that saves a lot of money.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Michael, thank you for talking Fear and Greed.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
That was Michael Idle, CEO of OpenPay. This is the Fear and Greed Daily Interview. Join me every morning for the full Fear and Greed podcast with all the business news you need to know. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.